Are we?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Yeah, the camera's not spotted.
Okay, I was like, I don't see it. Welcome, everybody, to our 5 p.m. February 23rd, 2026 Policy Committee meeting. At this time, I'll call this meeting to order. We have no public comment, so I'm going to move right on to our policies for review and turn it over to Ms. Graham to get us started.
Thank you. The first policy for tonight is going to be IHBCD, Alternative Educational Program. This is a relatively new policy. You all might remember we adopted it in 2023 when we transitioned to the RISE program. And after some time, we wanted to make an update to that. So you'll see that proposed update there, which is primarily to allow the opportunity for a student who has successfully completed their goals at RISE to remain at RISE in very limited case-by-case circumstances where it is most appropriate for that student. And so we have sort of set up a procedure which would allow them to make that request because it would only be at the voluntary placement of the student or parent. And then that request would be considered by a committee at the district office with input from the relevant principals.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
No concerns. I do have a question after reading this. Do we have students that do make this request? Is that why it's
Yes,
a
a very limited
Perfect.
number, but there are some students who prefer that structure or that's a more
more class size and benefit? For sure. I think that's a great thing to have an option as.
And it's such a smaller environment and some of those high schools are just overwhelming.
Yeah, that some people are just gonna really benefit from that situation and environment. So, thank you.
This won't really limit our ability to serve students that should be there due to disciplinary reasons.
Correct, yes. And so that's why one of the factors that we said the committee would approve is school capacity.
Right.
And so the committee will consider that when they consider an application. And also the approval would only be for that current school year. So hopefully it would not cause capacity issues in the future.
Figured I'd just highlight that. Other than that, I don't have any questions or concerns or changes. Everybody is good for this to move on to.
Excellent. All right, next up, we have IHBG, homeschooling. And this policy had not been updated in a good number of years, so we wanted to bring it forward for review. As you will see, there is what appears to be significant changes to the policy. If you look at our previous policy, it was only the initial policy. We'll look at the rule in a second. The initial policy only had 2 sentences to it. And so we have moved some of the information that would typically be in the rule, but it's brought general information to the policy itself in line with the most recent model for that. And so I would say none of that is new information, but it is sort of reallocating it and making general statements in line with the state statute about homeschooling. Happy to answer any questions about that.
Any questions at this time? Does anybody else?
So that's essentially if they are not part of, I guess, an accredited homeschool association, they essentially have to get our approval.
So there are, yes, the state provides 3 routes to homeschooling. One is through the State Independent Homeschool Association. One is through the other associations. Those are options 2 and 3. And then option 1 is under the auspices of the school board. And the option 1 is significantly different. So we do reference option 2 and 3 here. However, the policy, particularly the administrative rule, is heavily focused on option 1 because it's regulated by the board itself.
So aside from moving stuff around and whatnot, cleaning up scrivener's errors, is there any concern about all the stuff that's currently going through the legislature that potentially could impact homeschooling? It's going to come back and bite us.
You mean in terms of the vouchers and
Vouchers, parental rights, there's all sorts of stuff that's.
yeah, I don't
I didn't
anticipate
read
that
that.
any of that would affect homeschooling options. Obviously, there is a lot of discussion at the state level about the vouchers and homeschool students, but I don't anticipate that any of that would change the regulations or the district's responsibility in regard to that.
I agree. All righty, that one's good.
Let's move that one forward. Excellent. Next, we have the administrative rule that accompanies that, IHBGR, homeschooling. And there again appear to be some significant changes, particularly at the front of this policy. However, contextually, they are not significant changes. That first paragraph is highlighted in yellow. This is information that is in our current policy, but not in the model policy. And after reviewing it, I felt that it was helpful to remain. So that's why it's highlighted, just because it's a little different. But certainly, if there are any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those. Beyond that, the second section, which is struck through regarding homeschool state law information, is just a restatement of the state law. And so that was repetitive and has been removed. There's a reference to the state law at the end if you want to read that information there. And then beyond that are just some what I would consider sort of minor changes that bring the policy in alignment and up to date with the state statute. Except in regard to students with disabilities, we just recommend removing a portion of that section and leaving the section that aligns with state and federal law regarding providing services to students who have disabilities who are homeschooled under option 1, which is that they receive a proportionate share of our IDEA funding. And I think I saw Ms. Dix here. So she can answer any questions about that. But students who are homeschooled or in private schools receive a small portion of our federal funding to receive some level of services. And there's a process for determining what those services look like.
I'm confused about the first paragraph section,
Okay.
bulleted points. Is
Mhm.
that pertaining to option 1 only?
Yes, those are pertaining to option 1.
Can we-
Well,
I mean, because like,
actually, they are sort of all over the board because things such as not receiving a South Carolina high school diploma is applicable to all of them and the colleges. So
I mean, like the
I do
bullet
see
points,
why
I
that's-
just think like option 3 is what I mean, I homeschool my child. So I think homeschool applications are only approved for 1 school year at a time. I mean,
that's right. And so
That
that would
doesn't even
be
make
only
sense.
applicable to
Yes.
option 1. You're right.
so like I apply for my association annually, but I don't have to do anything with the public school
Mhm.
system.
That's correct.
At all. And as long as I'm in compliance with that, this does not make sense. Students can only be homeschooled for 1 grade during an academic year. Again, doesn't make sense.
Right. That's under the option 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
maybe we
Sure.
can-
So we could just remove that section altogether, or we could divide it out as to which apply only to option 1 and which are general statements. But like I said, that was not in the model
I know
anyway, so if
you-
you feel, if you prefer to just remove it altogether.
I mean, I'm fine with either, but I do think you need to specify throughout the policy, what pertains to option 1 versus option 2 and 3, because option 1 is very different than 2 and 3. And so option 3, I think, I mean, I'm more familiar with option 3, but I know it's significantly different than option 1. And there's a lot more,
Yeah. and-
autonomy. And so I just want to make sure that we're not conflating the two and confusing people, or if they do transfer back into the public school system, our policies aren't prohibiting or preventing their access to education as a result of these policies.
Yeah, I do think that's a good point about some of the things. And I agree that even as you read throughout the policy, some things are applicable to all homeschool students and some are only for option 1.
Would you mind
So I
pausing
think
on this one and maybe just sitting down and just going over it? I mean, I'm fine if you want to make the recommended changes, but I think there's a little bit, it'd be hard to like pass out of committee and then not.
Sure. Yeah, I can certainly make those changes and then bring this back to committee. Do you all want to hold IHBG and move them forward together? Or do you want to move forward on the policy and just bring the rule back?
I'm fine with moving forward on the policy. I don't really see, but either way is fine. Whatever you think would make more
I'm
sense.
fine to move forward on the policy and then, sure.
Sorry, I don't mean
No,
to.
that's okay.
I was
agree.
reading it and I was a little bit confused, so I figured I'd ask today, but then now that you did say that they're different,
Yeah, I agree. You know, sometimes when you read it with your knowledge versus like,
Yes.
someone outside reading it. So I think those are good recommendations and I'll certainly make some proposed changes.
I
and
just
bring them
worry
back.
about inadvertently creating an issue for possibly our option 2 or 3 students, so.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. I will make those changes and bring it back.
So I appreciate it.
All right, next we have IJND, which is the Artificial Intelligence Responsible Use Proposed Policy. This would be a new policy for the district. If you all will recall, a couple of years ago, we created our academic integrity policy, which was slightly focused on AI use across the district, but also encompassed other things. And so this policy would be intended to address AI more specifically. There is a model policy at the state level, which this is based off of with some feedback from our AI task force. And so if you all want to sort of read through that, or I'm happy to touch on the section. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. There are a few things highlighted in blue. I just did that for the board's information because they were different from the original proposal. So.
You did that for everyone else on the board's information. I can't see it, but anyway.
Oh, he's colorblind.
Oh, I was like, I apologize. I didn't know. Sorry.
So a couple of things in the first paragraph, where it says used in a responsible and ethical manner. Would you consider adding an appropriate, responsible and ethical manner?
Sure. I'm sorry. Can you just direct me to wait, where you?
First paragraph, right after the word used in the last sentence.
Sure.
The first sentence in the second paragraph,
Mhm.
after it says, second line, educational experience of the district's students, comma, the use of artificial intelligence programs. Is there an and in there, or am I not reading it right?
Here.
Between students and the use, I'm just not following what that sentence is trying to say. Could be me.
I'm sorry. Can you,
Oh, I see. And
the second
the-
the
use of
educational
artificial
experience
intelligence
of the
programs.
district's students, that one?
Yeah, I understand it as it's read though. Continued improvement,
Continued improvement. Technology to enhance the educational experience of the district's students.
comma, the use
The use of.
Yeah, I don't think it needs it.
It's just me. I recommend rather than saying at least annually, I would say at least twice a year. The changes and whatnot that happen, are happening so fast. At least ought to get a review, in my view.
Sure, right now we're meeting monthly or relatively monthly, so I don't
Yeah, so you already beat that.
foresee
but
that
I'm
being a
just
problem.
saying in policy to be,
All right.
see that. The third paragraph at the end is it must be aligned with grade level standards set by whom? The districts,
State
states, or all the above.
standards.
Would you like to specify state
I
grade?
would.
Okay.
Under definitions.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen any of the exciting and dynamic things that kids are using AI to do these days, up to and including creating freestanding applications and things like that. Do we consider anything around agentic AI as well? Do
I
we need to?
don't know if I want to call it. I will say that this part is far outside my wheelhouse. It was sort of recommended by our technology department. I believe, if I understand correctly, that would fall under generative AI within that definition, but I would really have to defer to someone from our technology department for that. I don't know if Colin wants to take that on right now, or if we would.
Does,
So say that again, Jim, you're asking if we need to include agentic.
Anything
Section.
around agentic or the point that you
I mean, you're really
create?
already in, I think what they were trying to do here is keep it as open-ended as possible. Because even though agentic is right now the buzzword, a month from now is gonna be something new.
Argue with that.
And so I think all of that, what you're talking about, falls under these definitions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
Got it.
entirely familiar with that, but I think the definition of generative saying capable of creating various types of content would include creating apps or other programs, things of that nature.
Actually, it's a good point. We just want to throw into that list applications that
that
covers
could,
a whole host of
Okay.
things, and that's a
Sure.
concern. The last, under acceptable use,
Mhm.
I would recommend we include some statement that says that if they're going to use it, they're required to include all citations wherever used. if I understand this right, this paragraph is aimed at students with permission of classroom teachers. But, you know, one of the concerns, one of help, I would argue, you want to help the teachers who might not otherwise have access to AI detection tools. Okay. If they use it and they don't provide the citations, that's no different than plagiarism.
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess it depends on the context in which you're using it, because you might be using AI in like a classroom. Like, that's not like a formal paper or written documentation. You might be using it in like a collaborative way or
Same way you might use the internet.
yes.
But
Like,
not
I don't want to say you must cite it, because then what if like we're doing I don't know, some sort of AI group project or something like that, I mean, like, where we're not actually showing,
Sure.
does that make sense? You know what I'm
Yes,
trying to
I
get?
also think that that would probably already be covered under
Under,
academic
like,
integrity.
yeah, I was gonna say.
I was just gonna pull that up, but,
'Cause it says
I believe that it
in
talks
line with that,
specifically
yeah.
about the requirements that you cite work and don't present work as your own when it is not. And so I believe, you know, under that policy, that would still be applicable.
That was my
If you're
understanding.
presenting work as your own, that is not.
I just don't want to limit it in this policy and restrict it too much that like, then like maybe some creative uses that aren't necessarily requiring citation is now like, okay, like what do you do in that situation? But I do think, I mean, you can clarify if it's covered.
Well, but even under the prohibited uses, you
Yes.
kind of have that they're prohibited from obtaining improper assistance from AI programs
Yeah.
to complete assignments, engage in cheating, plagiarism, or any other form of academic dishonesty.
Plagiarism would be utilizing it without.
And the academic integrity policy also states they, meaning students, must not present others' work or the work created by or with the assistance of artificial intelligence as their own, nor should they provide false information or engage in any form of plagiarism. So similar reflected sentence there.
I think we will pass on that recommendation and see what else we have for us, Jim.
Under discrimination, bullying, and harassment. Does the vehicle or tools that I use to discriminate, bully, or harass somebody really matter?
Sure, I would agree that I think it is probably already covered under that, but I think it was just an attempt to reiterate that for anyone using this, that is clearly a prohibited use, but I would agree that technically speaking, it's probably already covered under other policies.
I'm fine with keeping it in for emphasis. I think I would rather over explain and overemphasize where, when, and how discrimination, bullying, and harassment is not allowed than to just necessarily rely on it being in one place. I'd rather over explain and ensure people are aware and know, and this is the
And if somebody say,
expectation.
well, it wasn't stated in the policy, well, now.
Like,
we
I
have
didn't think
to state it.
AI counted or something you generated with it, so I'd rather cover, yeah. Make sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm going with that. Should we reference the discrimination, bullying, and harassment?
We could reference it. We could say if like, if I think we do talk about violations, but you could say see, our bullying, whatever policy for more details or something, you know.
Sure, we could put a reference
Or
there.
more details on bullying and harassment, you know?
Good finds.
Jim,
I'll,
is that all your recommendations?
That's it.
Did anybody else have? All right, thank you, Jim. We appreciate your feedback. I think we're good to go with the recommendations we discussed. And
That is all I have for today.
awesome. And seeing that there's no public comment, we will adjourn.